Rarely does one man have a profound impact on both business and consumer, but Steve Jobs did. And today, people around the world are mourning his passing at the age of 56.
Pat, his innovations are everywhere, from iPhones to iPads to iPods. Ephraim Graham has this look at his life and legacy.
Thousands of people held vigil outside Apple stores across the globe, remembering a man whose vision and brilliance shaped technology and the world.
An inspiration to the world.
A force of nature.
One of the great visionary leaders in America, maybe the world.
Thanks for coming.
Wearing his signature black turtleneck and jeans, Jobs would time and time again unveil revolutionary products that set new industry benchmarks.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
Jobs was the brain behind the iPhone. The sleek and stylish part phone, part computer sent competitors scrambling to come up with their own versions. Jobs was obsessed with staying a step ahead of everyone else.
There's an old Wayne Gretzky quote that I love. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been. And we've always tried to do that at Apple.
The launch of the iPod in 2001 is perhaps his most influential creation. It put 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Technologic.
10 years later, the iPod and those white earphones now seem more universal than a wristwatch.
And you can watch it on your iPod.
Jobs started Apple in 1976 out of his garage with high school friend Steve Wozniak. The next year, their first machine designed for the masses hit the market.
Now I'd like to show you Macintosh in person.
At 25 years old, Jobs was worth $100 million.
My name is Woody.
He also took over Pixar, changing animation forever. Many call him the Thomas Edison of his day.
Everything will be portable. People want large color screens that they can put photographs on. People want motion video.
In 2004, Jobs announced he was battling a rare form of pancreatic cancer. He underwent a liver transplant in 2009 after taking a medical leave of absence. But when he came back to work, he came back with a bang.
And we call it the iPad.
Jobs introduced the iPad, despite market experts who doubted the product, saying no one really needs one. Apple sold more than 14 million iPads just last year.
So thank you all very much for coming this morning, and we'll see you all soon.
6 weeks ago, Jobs handed over the reins of Apple to now CEO Tim Cook. Jobs was an inspiration to many. He saw the future and led the world to it.
Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important.
Well, he's an amazing person, and we mourn his passing. Extraordinary. We understand that I was just told that Apple now has the second market cap of any American company, second only to ExxonMobil. It's just astounding what this young man did. And to think, you know, he was the product of two grad students, one of whom I learned as I was doing some research today was from Syria. So Steve Jobs, we don't hear too much about it, actually was half Arab.
You know, I was watching a lot of the different, brilliant. I was watching a lot of different stories, and what I thought was so fascinating was, with all of his inventions, he's such a visionary that he never had a focus group. It was never about what other people, he thought other people would like. It was, he knew what people liked, and he kind of ushered that in. I think that's fascinating.
It's the whole thing about him is fascinating. But, I mean, it's such a tragedy, and it was pancreatic cancer that finally got him, but he struggled hard. I'm also told, you know, they had a blow-up at Apple some years ago, and he or the quitter was fired or whatever.
The board pushed him out.
Well, that's...
Sorry.
Thank you. Board pushed him out. Well, anyhow, it was almost bankrupt. He comes back and just explodes. The thing takes off, and it's astounding. So, well, I don't know what to say except that the world is saddened by a great visionary who has passed on off the scene. And I finally got into the computer age.
Well, yeah, are you ready for me to make fun of you? I'm going to really quick.
Please do.
81 years. You've never had a computer.
Never.
A typewriter?
Sure, I used to take them in law school.
But you've written every single one of your however many dozens of books by hand.
That's right.
And at the age of, how old are you?
You said it.
80-something.
81.
81. Right. You finally get the iPad.
Man, is it something?
Isn't it cool?
I have looked up so many books. I can get free books on it, and I just read my head off, you know, book after book after book. It's kind of fun.
Thank you to Steve for that.
Every time I look at the iPod, I'll kind of have a silent remembrance of Steve Jobs. Well, in any event, some people do it, and he did it. Wendy Griffith has the rest of our top stories from the CBN News. Wendy?
Thank you, Pat, and welcome to the computer age, Pat. Well, the Iranian government is sending out more conflicting stories about the Christian minister facing a death sentence. Pastor Yusuf Nardakani is convicted of apostasy from Islam and could be put to death at any time. However, a statement on the Iranian embassy in London says the court has not issued a verdict yet, and therefore the allegations of the death penalty are unsubstantiated. But an Iranian news agency is increasing its rhetoric. It now reports the pastor has been convicted of Zionism, threats to national security, and even rape. All are death penalty offenses. Analysts say false rape charges are often used by the Iranian government as an excuse to execute political and religious opponents. The American Center for Law and Justice is working to free the pastor. Jordan Sekulow of the ACLJ tells CBN News the conflicting statements coming out of Iran are actually a good sign that international pressure is working.
We know for a fact now that the Iranian leadership is on record. They know that they're acknowledging he's in court. They're acknowledging he's in prison. They're acknowledging Pastor Yusuf exists. And that's something they didn't do a few weeks ago. So that statement alone. Now, it's ridiculous how they say they renounce the reports, because we provided all the documentation from their Supreme Court of their country, translated from Farsi into English. All the news outlets have this. CBN News has got it. And it's clear he was never charged with anything other than apostasy. And because of that, now you've got Iran scrambling. But I'll tell you, the charges of Zionism, the charges of being a traitor, the charges of extortion, if you go through Iran's execution records that the UN keeps every year, you see this unbelievable amount of those kind of crimes, people being executed for. And what human rights groups agree on is that those are mostly political and religious dissidents who are, Iran comes up with some normal sounding criminal charge to execute them for. So it's a very troubling time.
The ACLJ is calling on Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to call Iran to task and demand the pastor's immediate release. To see more of Jordan Sekulow's interview, you can go to our website, that's cbnnews.com. And, Pat, we do need to be praying for Pastor Yusuf's immediate release.
Well, you know, there's been sort of silence around the world because people are not too much aware of it. We have brought it up front and center. I think it's an important thing. And what it does is expose the lie of Islam as a peaceful religion. Remember, the Iranian state is a theocratic state. They call themselves an Islamic republic, and they are based on Sharia law. And so they have convicted him, and the charge against him is apostasy. It's about failing to renounce Jesus Christ. That's what they said to him. If you announce Jesus, we will not prosecute you. And he said, I will not do it. It's like one of the martyrs of old. But what a black eye public relations to the whole nation of Iran. It just gives a lie to it. And I would think that, if nothing else, their fellow Islamists would come after him and say, look, stop this thing. Let this man go free. You're embarrassing us all. Wendy?
Pat, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia says the quality of federal judges is suffering. Scalia and Justice Stephen Breyer appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee to discuss the role of judges. Scalia said Congress turns too many cases into federal crimes, creating a need for too many judges. He says the Federal Judiciary Committee should be an elite group. He said, quote, federal judges ain't what they used to be. Pat, is that true? They ain't what they used to be?
Well, Scalia is a better judge of that than I am, but he's a brilliant man and a wonderful guy. We had a marvelous time when he came down to visit Regent University. But what he says is absolutely right. Every law, it seems like they pass now, has a criminal sanction attached to it. Every law. It's just unbelievable. In the early days of our republic, maybe we had 3 laws that were crimes, like treason and things like that. Now we've got 3,000, 5,000. And the prisons are jammed up with people who've been convicted of petty stuff that you wouldn't normally put somebody in jail for. And I'm especially concerned about all these so-called drug offenders, first time, wind up in prison, and they come out hardened criminals. It is something that's got to be changed. And here you've got the most conservative judge on the court saying the same thing that I've been saying all along. Congress needs to revisit the criminal justice system and rewrite those laws and strike down about 2/3 of the criminal sanctions that are in these laws. They just can't have it, and it stretches law enforcement, and it certainly is overcrowding our prisons. And when I think again, I go to California. If my facts are right, and I believe they are, California spends twice as much on prisons than it does on education of its young. Now tell me if that isn't out of bounds, Wendy.
Pat, the Republican field for president seems to be set now that Sarah Palin has announced she's not running for the GOP nomination. Palin says she and her husband Todd will continue to, quote, devote ourselves to God, family, and country. Many political analysts expected Palin to stay out of the race, although many of her supporters were still hoping that she would run. The Transportation Security Agency is testing a new program it hopes will get passengers through airport security lines faster. Passengers can volunteer for a pre-check before they go through those long lines. They'll provide the government with some personal information. Then they can go through special security lanes with less intensive screening.
As TSA moves further away from a one-size-fits-all approach, our ultimate goal is to provide the most effective security and the most efficient way possible.
It's great. If you travel a lot, every little convenience like this makes a huge difference.
The new program is currently being tested at only a few airports, including the country's busiest hub, Hartsfield-Jackson International, in Atlanta. So that's good news, Pat.
Well, it is good news. You know, this is what the Israelis do. They know these people. They've screened them carefully. And they also have profiles of the kind of person who would do a terrorist act. And they know immediately how to spot them. And they don't get some little grandmother with Dubuque and pat her down and take her shoes off and otherwise humiliate her. They know those people aren't going to do any terrorist acts, so they leave them alone. They let them go through fast. And that's we've got to develop the same sophistication that the Israelis have, because they've been under this terror threat for years and they know how to handle it.
Thousands of military chaplains refuse to perform same-sex marriages. They feel that doing so violates their beliefs. The Pentagon says they will not force chaplains to perform same-sex weddings. Both Protestant and Catholic chaplains feel that allowing the ceremonies on military bases ignores the federal law defining marriage as between one man and one woman. They want Congress to declare that no federal facility be used to bypass that federal law. A Christian man in Greece faces 4 months in prison for sharing the gospel. Authorities in Crete convicted Dumavalitis Emmanuel, a Pentecostal Christian, for violating a law against proselytizing. In 2006, Emmanuel shared his faith with another man and convinced him to embrace Pentecostalism. An appeals court has upheld that conviction. The Greek Orthodox Church is Greece's official church. Emmanuel's attorney says the ruling shows there is no freedom of religion for speech for Christians who do not belong to the state church. The case may go before the European Court of Human Rights. And you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website, that's cbnnews.com.